Hey there, everybody. Welcome to our afternoon edition of Big Brother 22 All-Stars live feed spoilers. Right now on the feeds, the Safety Suite competition, or whatever you want to call it, is still going on. The irony of all ironies is it might be done at the time in which you're watching this.
It might be, but I don't think there's going to be a ton of surprises going on after it anyways.
No, we're gonna map through some Safety Suite scenarios here. We'll talk a little bit about the winner and a couple of other things later in the day, but in addition to that, we'll discuss the Tyler and Kaser conversation from earlier on in the day. Kevin's venting to the camera, so there's a few other interesting odds and ends to go through before we dive into anything here, though. If you guys do like this video, give us a like, subscribe, hit that notification bell, and if you do want to support us more, just check those links. We've got our store where you can get shirts, mugs, and all sorts of cool stuff, and our Patreon if you're interested in supporting us over there. We've got a number of different tiers worth looking at.
Okay, so for the Safety Suite, we have Enzo, we have Memphis, we have Danny, and we have Nicole all playing in the Safety Suite.
It is the wah, wah, wah of Safety Suites. If you're wanting a surprise, if you're wanting an underdog, unfortunately, Kevin, Janelle, Kaser, they've all used them up already.
Yeah, this is going to be a not surprising type deal. I mean, as far as the plus ones go, the only possible chance, and it is really small, of someone using their plus one to save Janelle or Kaser is going to be Memphis. And I just can't see him really doing it unless he was in a situation where he was kind of like, well, last week I didn't want Ian to be chosen, and you guys all decided to do that against me. Thanks, Christmas. So this week, I'm just going to pick Janelle and be like, oh, noes, I didn't realize you wanted her on the block, and I will do the same to you. I could see him doing it, but it's small. Yeah.
Devil horns are coming out for this. Okay. What if let's say Danny wins this, and she goes into the diary room, and there's a card there from Big Brother, and it says, congratulations, Danny, you now have a chance to be the new Big Brother saboteur. Here is your offer for $5,000 if you save Janelle. Will she take that offer?
It's really interesting that you bring that up because someone in the comments, one of you guys mentioned the idea that there will be maybe that sort of competition that comes in where there's like, oh, we'll offer you guys money if you don't really, target them. Sort of a little honeypot of please don't do this as a competition.
The tinfoil hats will be out in full force over this next 6 or 7 days.
Yep.
We all know that Janelle is the target, that Tyler is likely going to do what he can to get her out of the game. But you know who's probably going to do the exact opposite? Production, because I do not think production wants this in any shape or form.
Yeah, like, I've seen your comments, and we probably should talk about a little bit about the HoH, because there are some people out there that are saying that Tyler's beer was still sliding when he hit the button, so he should be disqualified, and that there's a change.org petition out there for this. Honestly, I think if that was in the rules, that the beer had to have stopped before you hit the button, that production would have stepped in. They don't want Janelle to leave. So I really think that if there was a way for them to be like, oh, no, we can do something about this, I honestly think they would.
Okay, I'm going to try to pull from whatever reality TV experience I have with Beauty and the Geek on this in a couple of different ways. I know that they have Julie sort of giving the contestants the rules on the show, but if it's like Beauty and the Geek, a lot of times the contestants are briefed further on the full rules before you even see anything that you see on screen. So they already kind of have a chance to get the nuances out, and they probably know more about the rules than we do. The other thing here, though, is that I think the last thing in a million years Big Brother wants to do, and I do think they definitely want to save Janelle if they can, but they don't want to go back and be like, we screwed something up on our own challenge and our own ruling. Like, I remember on Big Brother 20, I believe, there was a much more egregious HoH win controversy. I think it was during an endurance or something, and that was fairly obvious that they screwed it up, and they didn't go back and redo that at all. I don't think they're going to redo this. I think ultimately, because Tyler had a higher score than anyone else, they're just sort of like, whatever, the time period of it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, no, it doesn't.
It is still fun, though, to try to talk through ways that we can change something. It's just, like we've said for a while, it's not just that we like Janelle and Kaser, it's that we want there to be plurality in the house. We want there to be a house war. We don't want there to be just sort of a straightforward, let's take out one side of it, because we like Tyler.
Yeah, and I think production doesn't want that either. I think they do want it to be sort of a fun back and forth and different people getting into power and not just one big mega alliance just steamrolling everybody because it's not compelling TV. So, yeah, I honestly think that if for whatever reason Tyler really didn't win that, they would have stepped in and been like, oh, you hit your button before the beer stopped, so I'm really sorry, but this is the way that it actually is.
Yeah, and I don't know off the top of my head, because if Tyler had been disqualified, it would have been between Ian and Janelle. I don't know which one of them was ultimately faster, but either way, we probably would have had a much more exciting week.
Yeah, because that's the other thing that people were mentioning in the comments is the idea that was it that you had to beat the time and the number of beers, or was it just you had to beat the number of beers and the time didn't really matter? They didn't do a great job in really explaining what this was all about, because there was a lot of people saying, just take your time, because if you get more beers, you don't need to beat somebody else's time. You just need to have the most beers. So slow it down, get your beers in, take 20 minutes. It doesn't matter.
Who knew we would get so much controversy and conversation out of what just felt like it was a pretty blasé HoH competition.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess talking about the safety suite thing, it's that unless this Memphis thing happens, there's probably not going to be a surprise. It sounds like Enzo might pick Davon for safety.
It's a good choice.
I think in general, it's just a good choice to pick someone who is kind of outside of the Blob Alliance to sort of mask it a little bit. And that way, you're not also, helping out Janelle or Kaser or Kevin.
Yeah, I agree. I think Davon or a Bailey +1 is probably something that a lot of people are going to be looking at.
If you're Memphis, do you give it to David and say, my bad, you do deserve to be here in this game?
No, he's not going to do that. And even though David had a chance to nominate Memphis as a have-not and then didn't, I mean, I just think that kind of just washes it away for now. If David gets HoH, I think he's definitely going to kick Memphis out of the house. But I think David made a really smart move, not just being like, oh, you want me to sort of pony up to the big boys table? Now you're back to being this have-not, I'm choosing you sort of thing. I think he did a really smart move, just letting it go, and then Memphis will be fine, David will be good. Then if Memphis gets into power again next week, David may not be on the radar anymore because Memphis might feel like, all right, it's all good now, we're good.
I think it is. I think it's the smartest thing David's done all season, to be honest, because he's keeping the narrative on this show from being about him versus Memphis. He's shifting it somewhere else. That is always going to be very good for him, but speaking of people who are doing a good job, Tyler, just watching the man work, as just boring as I think part of this week could be, him and Case are talking. This is Tyler's biggest strength, is there's a game language. Because you know love languages? Mm-hmm. There's a game language where you got to talk to people in a way that they want to be talked to. He and Kaser talked today.
Yeah.
He was very reasoned. He was very logical. He kept the door open to working with Kaser in the future without also guaranteeing Kaser anything whatsoever.
And it's such a really smart move also just for Tyler, because we know that, other people like Danny and Nicole are now kind of like, do we need to take care of Tyler sooner rather than later? So if Janelle goes and he needs to shift over, he can shift over with Christmas, David, him, and Kaser and deal with Danny and Nicole. He is building up a very strong relationship with Kaser in a way that doesn't promise him anything, but still leaves the door open for everything.
Yeah, Like, what if Kaser stays and Kaser wins the next HOH? Like, the obvious choice would be, oh, I'm gonna take out Tyler as revenge, but if Tyler does a good job of smoothing this over, and let's say Nicole and Janelle get into like 15 more fights over the course of the next week, maybe Kaser goes after Nicole. Maybe Tyler ends up being okay.
Yeah, it's very interesting that nobody's targeting the winners here. Like, it's pretty interesting.
I guess that's why they're winners. It's just like, I've said this before, Nicole drives me crazy on the feeds a lot of the time, but she's a good player and she's good at like hiding herself somehow.
Yeah, she is. But I think Tyler is playing it really smart this week. He is going after Janelle and Kaser, with Janelle being the target. He's had this really good talk with Kaser. If he can continue those talks with Kaser throughout this week, he's going to be in a really sweet spot, because the only person that's going to be really mad about Janelle going is Kaser.
Yeah.
So if he's able to, keep that smoothed out, then I think he's going to walk away from this week without any problems. That's crazy.
Tyler's a really good HOH. We saw this the first time he played. He's done fairly well so far. I guess the only other notable highlight, and this is what happens when the feeds are down for like 3 hours, is Kevin having a brief monologue to us earlier, and what a surprise. I have some breaking news for you. Or I guess for everybody. Kevin is upset at his own spot in the game.
Shocker. It really sucks to be sort of stuck in that spot where he's, frustrated about his quote floater status. And it's weird because I don't even necessarily see it as a floater status. He's on the wrong side of the numbers. There's nothing he can do. It's Janelle, Kaser, Kevin, they're all going. And it doesn't matter sort of to the other side of the house. Yeah, they want Janelle out first, but it's like, it doesn't matter who goes, they all gotta go. So, we'll just pick them off 1, 2, 3 and move forward from there. It doesn't matter what Kevin does, because even if he gets HOH next week and takes out one of them, he can't play in the next HOH, so he's just done for.
Here's what Kevin needs to do. Go into hiding. Don't do very much. Don't say it, because eventually, like we talked about earlier, Tyler's going to eventually try to do battle with some other people in this alliance, and they're going to do battle with him. He could be a very valuable number. It's just going to be frustrating because he's going to have to be really, really patient and hope that other people implode, and implode fast enough that he is not out the door at that time.
Kevin needs to work over Davon and Bailey, because they are on the bottom of this massive alliance. And there is enough time, especially this week with Tyler and Power, because if there is some kind of weird twist that's thrown in there and he gets stuck putting one of them up, it's going to be completely exposing everything. You never know with this show. Sometimes they'll throw in some twist shenanigans here to try to save Janelle. So you don't know, right? But if something starts to come out with that, if Kevin can really just find a way to just make a bridge here, it could help him somewhat. He's still on the wrong side of the numbers, but right now he's really just on his own.
Here's some fun stuff to look forward to. If you're sad about Janelle and Kaser probably going on the block, we understand. We're here from you. You'll probably see some fights. Maybe Janelle and Nicole will go at it a little bit. You'll probably see a new stupid costume. So if you like that,
yeah, I think that the Janelle and Nicole fights are probably going to continue to heat up. I sort of figured that this was going to continue to escalate just because, Janelle is bringing outside stuff into the game.
Yeah.
But I have been thinking she's been using it as gameplay. Nicole is a winner. Janelle wants to, try to discredit her or put a little bit of fear, a little bit of distrust, these other things that Nicole's doing. Be careful. This happened over here. And I think it can work. But the problem is that it is this whole house against Janelle, so nobody's really talking to Janelle as much as they should be.
Well, hopefully some of this will change. We will have an update later today. Hopefully we'll get a good sense of the nominations or the Safety Suites winner or anything else. But for now, what do you want to see happen over the next several days? What is keeping your attention on the feed? Share in the comments, give us a like, subscribe, and support us further by checking those links to the store, to our Patreon, and we'll see you here next time.